All right, hey guys. Sunday, April 3rd, 2022, crude oil. I'm going to make this really quick. I'm going to talk kind of quickly, but I just want to breeze through it to give a general overview. We'll start with the strat, then we'll go to the squeeze, and then we'll finish it up with Elliott wave. So, looking at the long term strat, the monthly, look at that wick. A lot of people think of that as a blow off top. I mean, that's the kind of wick you would see. That's a $37 candle right there. That's wild. Anyway, so of course the new month just printed the other day. It's an inside candle, of course, as you would expect. So 93.53 is, in strat speak, 93.53 is fairly important because if you break 93.53, you're going to get a new monthly bearish candle. This would be a 2-2 reversal, bearish reversal in strat speak. So coming down to the weekly's bearish, just meaning, you had a bounce after this incredible run up in this top here. It gave a lot, wham, came down, as I was just saying, $37 from that top to there. Basically gave it all back from here. And then it had a nice bounce, but then it's reversed. So this is a 2-2 bearish reversal on the weekly. So the monthly hasn't reversed yet. The weekly has reversed. Actually reversed here, then it gave you a nice bounce, and then it's continuing to go down again. So, this is bearish. Okay, the daily is bearish in strat speak. You've had a bunch of twos, and honestly, this is kind of funny, but they call this a Randy Jackson. You've got four twos in a row. So, this is a bearish two. This was a reversal, but immediately couldn't do it, couldn't hang, gave it right back, and then continued. So this is called a 2-2-2-2 Randy Jackson bearish. Actually, I guess they would call that a bearish continuation. So the daily per strat, it's bearish. And you can also just see on this tool, it gives you the little time frames. So it's just telling you that on these longer time frames, there's time frame continuity for bearish. Okay, so then if you look down the 4 hour, now this is where I think the rubber meets the road. To me, this is the most important one. You've got an outside candle, right? Followed by an inside candle. That in itself is a setup because whatever breaks, however the one gets broken is the first clue. And the second clue is whichever way this outside candle gets broken. So over here you have the same setup. Over here you have the same setup. Here it fired as a 3-1-2 bullish reversal in strat speak. And here it fired as a 3-1-2 bearish reversal. And right now, look at this. You have a 3-1. Then you had another inside candle followed by yet another inside candle. And I did say to myself on Friday, man, it's like crude oil just fell asleep. And this is very indicative of a sleepy price action. Is when you've got an outside candle is basically a range expansion candle. And then inside of that is just going to be chop, which is what we have. And then when it finally resolves, it's either going to go one way or the other. Maybe that's like pretty obvious, right? But this is a setup in itself because you got a 3 and then a bunch of 1s. And it's falling asleep. Okay, so let's jump down and look at the lower time frames in strat. So here's the same 4 hour I just showed you. Now here's the 1 hour. You can just see, and then keep going down the 30-minute, and then even the 5-minute. Now I put the range around that outside 4 hour candle. I put a purple box around that just to give myself context on these lower time frames. So you can see that price is just chopping, but it's chopping in its tighter and tighter range. It's coiling up. Price is about to do something. In the way that I'm looking at this price action, price is about to do something. Okay, so that's just the strat. On these lower time frames, the strat, I'm not paying too much attention because I'm trading USO options right now. So I'm not. If I were doing futures, I'd probably talk more about these lower time frames. But I'm not. This is a scalper's paradise. This kind of thing. If you're using strat and futures. Okay, so that's basically the strat. It's the 4 hour, to me, that's providing the most clues, and it's this purple range that's really going to be the tell, I think. Okay, about what's going to come next. So let's look for more clues because that's kind of inconclusive, right? Because it hasn't. This setup is there, but it hasn't really fired yet. And this one fired bullish, and this one fired bearish. So let's look at the momentum. Let's look at the squeeze in the histogram to determine momentum. Monthly, momentum is coming down. Weekly, this last week, momentum gave it up and got a yellow candle last week on the momentum. Daily, it's been coming down ever since the top. Look at the daily momentum, the histogram. If you just imagine a straight line through there, it's coming down. And you had a kind of a fake out squeeze. Sometimes they blink on and off, these red dots. That's not really a viable squeeze, but I will just say that on the daily, the strat is bearish and the momentum is clearly right? The momentum's clearly down. Okay, and then if you look at the 4 hour, you did have a squeeze. This last dot blinked on and off. I have another tool I use in Toss where it actually has the red dot. It's just a difference in the math. But I'm considering this a squeeze, and I'm considering that it fired lower. So the momentum on the 4 hour off of the previous bearish 312 reversal did create enough downward momentum that this histogram is continuing to expand down. And just to give you an idea of, how does that relate to, say, this other one that fired to the downside? It's possible. I'm not saying that it is. I'm just saying it allows for lower. This setup allows for lower. And in the world of probabilities, I think it's more likely that, I think it's more likely it keeps going, even if it goes up first. Because look, it's already been up and down, and the momentum was just continued to go down, even as these bounced around and came all the way up to the top of that range. And then in the top 75% of that range, the histogram was like, I'm not buying it. So the momentum is still down. And there's a squeeze that's fired short on the 4 hour. So now let's jump down in the time frame. So here's that same exact chart on the 4 hour with a squeeze going lower. Here's a 1 hour with a very nice looking squeeze. Just as price was falling asleep, as I said on Friday, price was getting tighter and tighter. I put a triangle around this 4 hour because price has been kind of getting tighter and tighter as it consolidates in this area. It's just coiling up, and it's coiling up right into a squeeze. This is a very legit setup now. Okay, the 1 hour has a squeeze. The 4 hour has a squeeze that already fired. The daily momentum is down. The 4 hour momentum is down. Okay, so then you go down one more level to the 30-minute. Now I'm just getting crazy looking at these shorter time frames, but there's a mature squeeze happening there. And even though the price was oscillating, it's like the math behind this tool was not buying into there's any momentum. So even though price ripped up here, this tool was telling me don't believe it. And when it ripped back down, the tool is saying not so fast. So it's a little unclear what's going to happen here on the 30-minute by itself. And then the 5-minute is just a total snooze fest. Look at this. Just nothing but red dots all Friday afternoon. It's doing nothing, just asleep at the wheel. So the main thing is looking for clues. So where is this going to go? All right, let's look for more clues, because right now I'm bearish. So let's look for the last thing. Let's look at Elliott wave. So I put this 1-2 on there, 10 days ago when this first had that bounce. Well, first I put USO puts, and I was kind of front running this, quite honestly, just because of the work I just showed you. I was doing the same kind of work over here, and I was bearish. So I bought some puts on whatever Thursday that was, from March 24th. Then it came down here, and when it bounced up here, that's when I measured this as a potential 1-2. And then I bought some more puts in the late afternoon. I just said, I'm still having a small position in these April 14th guys. So then it came down and it played out a bit. So I'm going to show you two things. One, maybe this comes down to where I've got that 5. If this is going to complete and extend, like if that really is where the 3, which is pretty deep, but man, that's a heck of a move. I mean, that sure does look like a wave 3, doesn't it? That's a heck of a bounce though, but it did hold this pivot as I put all of this stuff on there back on the 25th. And then the prices have been following it, especially this pivot right here. Even in the past, it's amazing sometimes how it's almost like price has memory. So sometimes I'll look back just to see where that pivot, how price, like even here, was interacting with that pivot. Did it know? How did it know that? But anyway, so maybe it gets down to 93 per that measurement. And then today I was screwing around with another measurement which maybe if there's another nested 1, 2 inside of where I have this 3, 4, then it could actually push even lower because this little microstructure would actually project down closer to, say, 88, let's say. So, okay, so would you agree? Let's say Elliott wave allows for lower. By the way, I'm counting these little micro waves. It allows for lower. And then what's wild is I was also playing around with the idea of what if this is a 1, 2 to the downside? Like what if this really was like a major top and this is just beginning like some other giant, like down structure. And if that were a 1, 2, then I just threw some fibs on here just for the heck of it. And what I found interesting is that, yeah, if that is a wave 1, and then if that is the 2, then where this projects to, which isn't the most interesting thing. I mean, it does project, gosh, can you imagine a crude in the 50s? I can't. I guess it could happen, but I really can't imagine that. Just because I think I've read too many fundamental articles and analysis and the great members at LAWaveTrader.net who are experts at fundamentals, it just seems unlikely that would happen. But what is interesting, though, is the pivot for that. For the pivot for this 1, 2 actually is exactly where my two potential targets are. One is at the bottom of that pivot, and the other one is right at the pivot, 93 and 88. It's just kind of interesting when stuff kind of lines up in such a manner that it kind of makes sense. So in other words, if this does come down into this region, that is going to be really interesting to see what comes after that. Yeah. Because, man, if it loses this region, dang. Like, bulls do not even want to see much lower than this. Yeah. Okay, so that's LA Wave. I would just say LA Wave allows for lower. Strat suggesting lower, by the way I think of it. And the squeeze tool, including the Momo, is suggesting lower as well. Okay, we'll see what happens at the Open. I wanted to do a live video today, but I got the kids around. Mom's got a DJ gig, so she's out doing a DJ gig, and I got the kids. They're downstairs playing. But I knew if I went live, they wouldn't have it. They would be up here yelling at me and stuff. All right, guys, good luck. See ya.